Hey, perfect peeps. This is the perfect dev background. Look at that, John. I didn't even check on that yet. I wonder if our branding switches if I switch over. Let's see. Background. Oh, that's the old one. We could use the
I was expecting like your physical background behind you was going to start swapping, and then
I should have put the green screen up. I mean, it is like we have enough time. I could probably do something with that. I don't even have all this updated. It's funny. We've been doing so many podcasts on Perfect Dev that I haven't updated the CodingCat side in a while, and I need to do that because for those of you listening and you, John, we're going to start every Thursday. We're going to do Perfect Dev now live streamed, and then on Fridays we're going to do live coding every single Friday. So this is a good like starter. So thanks for being my guinea pig on this.
Happy to. Yeah, this is exciting. You do know it's not Friday though, right?
Yeah, I know. That's what's really throwing me now. Are you sure in Australia it's not Friday?
Well, yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was trying to work out the time zone, and then I was like, this
Am I
doesn't make
saying
sense.
this correctly? Yeah, so
I'm usually in the future in Australia, not you.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so perfect segue. John, you are the developer advocate at Supabase. Is that the correct title?
Yes, one of the developer advocates. So we're growing very quickly now. We've got like 4 people, maybe 5 soon. Yeah, so one of the developer advocates at Supabase, building fun examples and cool stuff. Ah, look, branding changing again.
No, I love kind of messing with this while you're talking just to throw you off completely. So I am the developer advocate currently at Builder.io, and we are kind of going to do like this mashup thing. We're growing too, but I don't know if we have quite the Series B funding yet that you guys just announced, right? How
Yeah,
many
yeah.
how many millions did you get this time?
It was 80 big millions, so now we've got to work out how to spend all of it. Uh, but
So
yeah, we
you're gonna
just announced our Series B funding, which is, yeah, very exciting.
invite people to like Sydney to hang out, right?
I'm in Melbourne.
Oh, that's right. I always forget.
Close. Australia. You got the right country.
I mean,
Just
you could
different
travel
city.
too.
That's true. They could fly me up to Sydney.
Nice. So we're talking about today. We're kind of going to do this mashup where we're going to go through and create like a Supabase kind of probably mostly a generic app using Next.js, and then I'm going to plug in Builder.io's React component, and we're going to show how to like use our visual editor to like build out pages. But John and I were talking before the thing. I'm like, how do we merge these two? And I think we have a really good idea. So I have a starter repo set up that we'll probably talk through like how we kind of got there. But then the cool part, I think, is going to be, John, when we do, we'll hook up like the authentication components that you guys already have, and we can kind of register those in Builder, and those can become part of the page. So we'll kind of play around with this and see where we end up.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't actually played with Builder.io yet. I've been excited about it for a while, so this is going to be the perfect introduction.
Great. Love it. All right, I'm going to attempt the screen share again. Hopefully it doesn't die off all over again. I'll try to go as big as possible. I know my 4K doesn't allow for great screen share on here. Folks, if you're watching, I'll try to watch the comments as we go along here. If you want to join me, just DM me on Twitter, and you can join us too. John, I was going to mention to you, did you want to code along with me? I had set up VS Code live share.
Oh, live share, yeah.
If you want, I can throw it
Go.
over to you. Let me kick that off. And again, anyone that wants to join, just ping me, and I'll shoot it over to you too.
I have to remember how to do all of this. I have done it once.
We tried it out earlier on the Discord. I was like, oh, someone make sure this works. I think this
maybe
is
let's start going through it, and I'll try and sort out.
Sent you the link on StreamYard, so just let me know if you can't get it. All right, cool. So the first thing that I walked through prior to getting all of this going was just the getting started on Supabase. So for any of you that don't know what Supabase is, I just want to quickly kind of go through that. I know there's some Supabase fans out here already that do know, so I don't want to spend a whole lot of time. But if you've ever experienced anything like Firebase or AWS, like Amplify, where it's like hosted, the goal of Supabase is to use all these open source tools kind of grouped together and make up like a Firebase type of solution. So Supabase gives us database, authentication, storage, and edge functions. Wow, can't talk tonight, Joe. So you get all of that kind of out of the box, and real time, I should say, before I get too like crazy here. When we go into our Supabase, was this dashboard, I guess? Here are the different projects that we have running, and I just created a new one for us, and you can see Supabase is hosted on AWS, so I'm in US East, which might be a little slower for John, but not a whole lot, I wouldn't think. And here you can see the database and the auth part I have set up. Storage is technically there. We're not doing a lot with it except for like storing a user image at this point. And then we'll talk about how the real-time piece works too. And oh, I don't even think I have to approve you. Cool.
I have all the power. Any Supabase project in the world, I can just join. No, I'm joking.
That would be really cool. I will also add you to Builder once we kind of get down that road a little bit too. So to first show this off, and John, steer me if I'm like talking too fast or need to head a different way. The goal with this, I quickly wrote this today and just threw it together. Basically, want to show you like the authentication portion of this, just to show that I am authenticated right now. What this allows you to do is kind of like, I'll call it an admin. It's a pseudo admin that's allowing. Basically, if you're logged in, you're allowed to click this add sports button or add animals button, and that adds to the table in the backend. And when I'm logged out, so it's sign out, it says please log in. And that's kind of the long and short of this easy demo. So I'm going to go ahead and do this again. Oops.
So yeah, I guess I can, ramble about auth while you're doing this. So yeah, Supabase comes with a collection of different auth strategies out of the box. So by default, it just has email and password enabled. So you can just add an input field for your email and an input field for your password, and register a new user. But it looks like Magic Link is also supported by default. So Alex has set up the ability to just put in an email, which is definitely a good call for when you have lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of side projects and you're constantly building things every day. It's very hard to remember all those passwords. So Magic Link works very well in that you can just put in an email and then it will send an email to you to verify that you're actually who you say you are, but then you don't need a password. Once you click the link in the email, it takes you back to your Supabase app and then you are signed in.
Brittany and I were just talking about on Perfect Dev how we think Discord's login system is probably the best with like that QR code login and pieces like that. But I tell you what, having Magic Link set up this easily, it's really nice. I really enjoy it.
That QR code auth flow is amazing. We a company I used to work for, a bank had an API, like a public API that people could use to interact with their banking data, and that was all done with just QR codes. So you scan a QR code on the screen and it gives you an API key. Any of those kinds of QR codey auth flow things are very cool.
So let's take a look just kind of at this Next.js setup as a whole. So there's kind of something fun going on here that we'll talk about, but I'm just going to take this right back to the original like path setup here. So this could be a little confusing for folks. So let me just throw in a index.js and I'm lazy, so I will just steal this, go like that. I was just telling people that now that I've started this dev advocate role, my typing skills have like degraded probably tenfold. It's kind of nuts.
That is interesting. Yeah, I feel like my typing speed has reduced dramatically, but my, like, typing accuracy while not looking at the keys, I think has improved.
That's true.
Maybe.
That's a really good point. My video editing skills maybe have improved. Wow, this thing is moving slow. Come on. Okay. So let's just delete this for a second. Hopefully this is cool. Hey, I see you. Cool.
It's me. I'm here.
Let's try this again. Okay. So here is like a traditional index page that you would start out like a beginner application with. Um, the key here that we're kind of talking about though is how to like utilize some of the Supabase backend with Builder. And the part that I want to like just go through right now without like confusing anyone, that's why I pulled that route out. So it just keeps really simple from the get-go. I want to show off just how this sports page works. So I'm going to flip over to that and take a look. So within this sports page, this is this is a little fun on this crazy resolution here. But basically what we're doing here, within the Supabase side of things, we have this one helper tool, or helper library, I should say, where we're actually setting up a client for Supabase. And this is pretty traditional, right, John? We're just pulling
Yeah.
in the JavaScript function for create client.
And then we're just giving it a URL and a anon key, and so both of those values come in from our Supabase dashboard. Do you want to show where they are? Oh, well,
Yeah,
maybe.
for sure. It's no big deal. I can always burn this thing down if we leak any
Yeah.
keys or whatever. So I was going to settings, right?
Yeah. So settings and then API. And then that a non-public value up the top is your anon key. And so this is safe to use in the front end once you have RLS enabled, which we don't have enabled in this in this
Not
video.
yet. Not yet.
Not yet, not yet. But yeah, so that the anon key is what you would use to connect to your Supabase client, and you can expose that in the front end using the next_public_ prefix, which makes it available to your Next.js front end app. If you leave off next_public_, it is only available in your server side stuff. So that's like get server side props, get server gets, and the and the API routes as well.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, since we want to
well
use
said.
this in our front end, which if you're doing any kind of real time or anything like that, then you will want to be able to use this in your front end. So yeah, prepending that with next_public allows us to do that.
Perfect. Well said. Well, next recap there. So we pass back that client that we basically initialize at that point, and we can use it within our application. So this is a standard like React page at this point. We're not doing anything fancy with static props or like anything like that. It's just straight up React essentially. And what we have going on here is this state or this session that we're keeping in state. And what Supabase does is when we have this Supabase piece initialized, we have this auth piece, and it has this on auth state changed handler. And at that point, we can actually set our session state and pass that around wherever we want. So we take, and when there isn't a session, we'll just display please log in. And when there is, we'll actually display the entire sports page at that point. And this is where it kind of starts to get a little more interesting, in my mind at least. So let's ignore kind of this for a minute. Like, let's just go like that and just pull it out of our brains completely. Well, what we have here is a simple button for add sports. So let me bring that side up, maybe. Okay, so we have this add sports button right here. And that's pretty simple. That's straightforward on click. What we'll notice here that we have Supabase, and then this is always interesting to me, this from right here. It
Yeah.
threw me off at first because I'm like, oh, are we getting data from this table?
Yeah, it doesn't read very well with the insert.
Yeah.
When you're when you're selecting something, makes a little bit more sense. If you scroll up to where you've got your
Yeah.
select, so like you're saying, like from this table, so from the sports table, I want to select these columns, and so in that case, you're just selecting all of the columns. So yeah, it reads a little bit more nicely with a select on the insert, a little bit more clunky. So from the sports table, you want to insert this value. It kind of works, but yeah, it's basically
Yeah.
instead
I
of
wish they
doing,
like would have just said Supabase that table or something.
well, that's true. Yeah, that would work.
Uh,
Um,
it
but
is
yeah,
what it is.
the first one is selecting. So obviously we're reading the values from the database, and then this insert is writing data to our
Yep.
Supabase instance.
Cool. And so when we click on add sports, we're just throwing a little faker image in there and some faker just names. Don't use this in production. It will kill your site. It's huge, but for our purposes, this works well. So we have that kind of set up. And then the other piece to this and kind of the important, so we are using a couple other things, I guess, next image, call that out. So we get nice images just on load and things like that. The other big piece to call out in here though, so let's take a look at our sports table at this point. So we have this sports table, and of course, every time we click, so if this is poor, let's see. I gotta quit with all these tabs tonight, John. All right. So with this sports page right here, if I start clicking that, it actually, we click refresh, we'll see the ID increment right here.
That is cool.
So that's kind of how that table update is going through. Now, unlike Firebase, Firebase is kind of tracking that directly within their own local database, and then it's doing a sync, and it's kind of creating that relationship. What's the word I'm looking for? It's not lazily updating. My brain's shutting off tonight. At some point, it will update.
Oh,
Basically,
eventually consistent
thank you, thank you.
database stuff.
Exactly, eventual
Yeah,
consistency.
right.
So when we talk about Supabase in the backend, the table is actually Postgres. And so how does this functionality work when we're actually inserting like this? Is the eventing system occurring through like a Lambda, or like what's throwing that event back at us?
Yeah, so Supabase has a few services all kind of grouped together. And one of those is PostgREST with a T. So Postgres, uh, yeah, Postgres T, as in capital REST at the end. Yeah, this is a better way to do this. So PostgREST is a REST API that can sit on top of your Postgres database. And so this is one of the kind of awesome superpowers of Supabase, I guess, is that this Postgres layer kind of pipes through all of the API key, like who the user is that's signed in information, so that we can then use that in our Postgres policies or in our Postgres functions or anything like that. We can know who the user is that's currently trying to perform this action. And so when you're calling Supabase.from and then a particular table, and then calling select or insert, that's making a query to, or sending a request to this Postgres service. So it's basically forming a REST style HTTP request for you, which hits this layer and then goes off to our Postgres database. And so, yeah, really, it's just making a post HTTP request, I guess, from the front end that's being intercepted by this, and then writing that data to the database. A
And the
little
cool
bit
part,
more, probably that architecture that you're used to, where you have a server and a client, and you're just sending HTTP requests between the two.
yeah, exactly. And the cool part in my mind, every time you set up a table like this in the back end, like you don't have to do any of that plumbing, right? So we automatically get all of these REST services out of the box. John could probably break down RLS for us a little more. We're not quite ready for that, but we'll get there. So that's how we limit data kind of going back and forth. And if you've used Firebase, that's your security rules essentially on the back end.
Well, if you wanna jump into it, it could be a good time while we're talking
Okay,
about data and we're talking about auth and all of those things.
let's do it.
So row level security, what this does by default is just denies all actions. So all select, update, insert, or delete actions. Supabase will just say, "Nah, don't trust you. Don't know what you're doing." Or Postgres will say that, but you know. Um, and so then if you want to access any of that data, you need to write a policy to be able to access it. So you need to enable each of those actions. So if we were to enable this on the sports table, for example, and then you go back and refresh your sports page.
Oh, sorry, this page.
Yeah,
It's not
we'll
gonna
see
like
that
me.
everything is broken. So all of this action is
No.
now denied by default. You're not allowed access to your own Supabase system.
I'm
No,
curious,
if you
does that throw like a 500 or like 401 or
It'll just give you back an empty array because
I
it's
see.
not that you've
Okay.
done anything wrong.
Yep.
It's just that so the way that row level security works is it will check on per row that you're trying to select. Is there a policy that allows you to see this? And if not, then moves on to the next one. Is there a policy that allows you to see this? And so it's not actually an error. It's just that you don't have the authorization level to see any of the rows. So you just get back an empty array. So if we
Cool.
want to make it that you can actually select some of that data, we just need to create a policy and we'll say, so if you click get started quickly, there's a few templates that we have that you can use.
Nice.
But if you go back, we can just write this one from scratch.
Yeah, let's see.
So we're for full customization, and then our policy name is just going to be
Oh, Alex only.
authenticated users can select sports. Sure. And so we can select which action we want to enable. So in this case, we want to enable select, and then we'll write a separate policy for insert. And so this one, we could just say, well, we could just enable it for anyone. How about we do that? How about we enable all
Okay.
select for everyone, and then our insert policy can just be if you're signed in. So it's as simple as just writing in the expression part. This is just an expression that evaluates to either true or false. So you can put any kind of condition in here that's going to give you a Boolean result. And so since we want to just enable it, we can just write true, which is
Cool.
just going to enable all select access. So now anyone can read this data. So now if you click review, we can see that the SQL that this generates actually isn't that scary. It's really just the fields that we just entered. And yeah, that's one thing that I think we try and do as much as possible at Supabase is try and surface what's actually
Yeah,
the SQL that's being generated and running behind the scenes because we give you full access to the Postgres instance. So
I
don't be
really love
scared.
that. That's cool.
So let's click Save Policy, and that's going to run that SQL on our table. And now, if we refresh the page, we should hopefully see some sports again.
Woohoo! We're in.
Awesome. And then, if we wanted to click Add Sport, you'll see that
Yes.
also probably fails. And have you handled it nicely in the
I haven't thrown any messages. There you go.
So now this one should give us an error because what we're trying to do, we're not allowed to do. So with select, it's checking every row to see whether we're allowed to see that specific row. But it could be fine that we can't see any of those rows. But if we're trying to insert, we're explicitly not allowed to insert anything. So we get this new row or row level violation, something. New row violates row level security policy for table sports.
Love it.
So anytime you see that error, it should trigger in your mind, hang on, I probably need a policy for this. Anytime you see row level security anything, then yeah, it's time to go write a policy. So let's go to the Supabase instance and
So,
create a new
so
policy.
the auth side of this, John, like for the most part, we're passing JWT tokens around, so it tells us who it is. So on a REST call, it's typically like an auth header bearer token that you guys use, and that gets passed in.
Yeah. So all of that plumbing happens for you. So because you're signing in through Supabase and your account lives in Supabase, and we're the ones that have said, "Yep, cool, you're signed in," all of that stuff gets plumbed through to any of these queries as well. So we can write RLS policies that can check who that user is, which is exactly what we're going to do for our insert. So let's do full customization again, and then this will just be that a user can insert an authenticated user. Let's just do authenticated because
Just like
yeah.
something. Okay.
Yeah. And then insert is what we're writing a policy for. And so then we can use a special helper that Supabase gives us, which is auth.uid, which is a function. So we do the curly brackets to call it. And so this is going to give us back the user ID for the user who's trying to make this request. So whoever is signed in. So then we can check whether that equals a particular column of the row that's trying to be selected. So if we say equals or space equals, and then no, just single equals, we're in Postgres land.
Right. I haven't written SQL in like 6 years.
So we want to check whether that auth.uid, that ID that we get back, is equal to. Oh, actually, no. Sorry, we don't want to do this. We don't want to use UID. I was trying to think. Hang on. Why are we checking their ID? What column are we checking it against? All we want to check is that they're actually signed in. So we can use another helper function, which is auth.role, and we just want to check whether that equals the text. So single quotes, I think. Authenticated. And just click review and we'll see if everything's all good. So we'll do save policy.
I guess we'll find out.
We'll find out very quickly. Let's click that add sports button.
Woohoo!
Hey,
Look at
awesome.
you. You know your
So
stuff.
so the auth.role, that's another helper function that we get from Supabase that just checks what their role is. And so if they don't have a role, then they're not signed in. If they have the role authenticated, then we know that Supabase has given them the thumbs up. And then we could extend that and add our own roles.
Cool. Let's talk a minute. So that's kind of like how we're pushing data in, how we can read a table. Now we have like roles set up to like secure our database the way it should be. There's this one tricky part with like the difference on Firebase here is how you actually see messages. So in Firebase land, like we're just hitting that same table, and as it updates, it just kind of filters down. Not asynchronous. What's the word I'm looking for? RxJS observable type of situation, right? So we don't have to really do much on there. However, in the Supabase world, we actually need to do this subscription side of things. So can you talk through kind of what like Supabase from and then this subscription does?
Yeah. So one thing, actually, we can show kind of the problem of what's going on here. Because if you click add sports again,
Yeah.
we get a new sport. And so this is adding a new sport. But if you open this up, I don't know if you can do this, but can you open up like a private tab or something
Sure.
and go back to localhost?
Maybe.
We might need to create a second account.
You have another one.
Oh, cool. If you want to sign in as the other user, actually, it shouldn't matter. You could sign in as either.
Oh, either way.
Yeah.
This is the problem, folks, with too many profiles and emails and things. Okay, I think we're good.
So we now have. So if you go to sports, you wouldn't. If you go to the
You know the
sports
tricky part, John, is with this magic link. I got to do it in this incognito window. Still.
Yeah. And now you get an error because you've already used it in the other one.
Yes. See, this is some of the fun. All right, my bad.
And so what we're just to explain why you're going through this, what we're trying to simulate is having, even though it is the same user signed in, just having two people using the app at the same time.
Here, I've got another one. We'll do this.
All right.
Gotta find the right email here.
Make sure you copy and paste it.
I know. I almost clicked it again.
it's just begging to be clicked. So inviting.
There we go.
So if you go to sports now, and you should see all of the same sports because they're all available for both users, although they've got different pictures. But
yeah, ignore the faker images, folks. Sorry about that. Probably not a great example.
If you click add sports on this window, we'll see that the window. Oh no, it does. Oh, have we already wired it up? Have you already got real time mapping?
Yes. So I could turn that off.
Let's comment that out for a second and save,
okay.
and we can just show. I don't know if you can hear that big truck that went past, but
No,
my office is shaken.
Probably, yeah, I was gonna
And
say
then just in the return, yeah.
that. Sub is not defined. There we go.
Okay, so before we have real-time subscriptions, if we click add sports on either of these, it's only going.
It won't update at all, right? Because
Yeah, right. Cool. So when you call, haven't you got set sports after the when you? Oh, you're just selecting from the
yeah,
first
just
select, right?
select it. Yep.
Okay. So yeah, when you do the insert, you can get back the data that you're inserting in and then spread it into the object. But that's not what we want to do,
Okay.
because then that would only work for one user, was what I was trying to demonstrate, is just like the one user who signed in clicking add sports, it's going to update because they're the one that inserted it. But the other one doesn't know anything about that. So if we want to subscribe to changes that are happening in the database, rather than just needing to keep a track of that state in our front end, then that's why we would use subscriptions. And so Supabase has a real-time server that just basically pumps out all of the any changes in the database through WebSockets. And so we get to use magical WebSocket technology without needing to actually set that up at all. And
Yeah,
so
I'm gonna actually set this subscription instead of setting the data. I'll just do a console log just so we can take a peek at like what it's actually sending back.
it's a good call. So now if you click the add sports, so what this is doing is it's going and inserting into the database, and then this subscription is listening to any changes on that table that are happening.
Yeah, and I noticed you can do like a from like star, like any change over any table, you can check for updates. So you can like kind of be listening to everything, which is pretty wild.
Yeah. Well, I just noticed so what you're doing currently is you're setting up a subscription, and anytime, so you're setting a subscription on the sports table. Yeah, I've got a cursor. Yeah, you're setting a subscription on sports, and you're saying you want to oh, sorry, up here. What am I doing? So you're saying from this table, you want to subscribe to any events. So this star means anything that changes. That's inserts, updates, deletes. Um, and then anytime something does change, this function is going to be called by Supabase.js. And so what you're doing here is you're going and selecting all of the sports again, which is identical to what you're doing here. But in this payload, we actually already have uh, the data of the thing that has happened, the event that has happened. So how about we comment out this section and we just console log. This is a great way to do it. Live coding, that's where it's at.
I'm telling you, this is so cool, isn't it?
Awesome. And so now if we click add sports again, and then I think our heads are in the way of being able to see it
Yes.
on the,
Well,
on
we'll
the
get us
screen.
out of the way for a minute.
Aww.
We'll come back.
Okay.
Don't
All
miss
right.
us too much, folks.
Good. So yeah, we've got our payload, and then this is what's actually changed. So you see we have this new object and this old object. So this is the new data, because we're subscribing to all events. If this was an update event, then you would have old would be set to the old record and new would be set to the new record. And so because we're inserting, old is blank because there was no record, and new is set to this new inserted row. And you'll see we have all of the data from our from that row, so all of the columns of that newly added data. So we don't actually need to make another call to Supabase to get all of the sports back, which is what we were doing in this code that I've commented out, because it's already in the payload. So we can just do the we'll need to manually do some magic here, but we can set the sports to being, we'll get the current sports where the value of the current sports is. So that's going to be that array of all of our sports. And then we just want to create a new array where we spread in the current, and then our payload dot new is going to be that new object. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I'm
Cool.
curious on that though. That sorting might be, yeah.
Yeah,
We'll see.
We'll see. So now if we click add sport again, does it come in at the top or at the end?
I think the end.
Okay, so all we need to do is just reverse
Yep.
the
You got it.
position of these two. So if we take this and put this as the first value in our array, and then we spread in the rest of the array, then
Now you
yeah,
got it.
we're back to that same functionality.
And so the eventing mechanism, like if we were to leave this page how it is, just for other folks to understand this, if you were on another page and you were creating the sport, it's still going to pick up that same event, even though it's two different people causing the event. So this code still works. So it's like if you're adding to Twitter and you're getting that live page update coming in, same deal. Like boop boop boop.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So no matter who is causing that event to happen, anytime every user that signed in is now subscribing to or the UI is subscribing to any changes that are happening in the database. The cool thing about this, though, a fairly recent addition, maybe like 3 months ago or so, but is that this now honors RLS as well. So these real-time subscriptions
Oh,
now run through
yeah.
the same kind of piping as any regular select statement. And so if we had an RLS policy that said that we weren't allowed to read this particular
Like
ID or
I can't see John's updates. It would
yeah,
then,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
if we had an RLS policy that said I can like John can only select sports that he's created,
yeah.
then that the subscription will automatically only subscribe to or only get published events that John is actually allowed to see, and so
Totally
you
makes
wouldn't
sense.
get my sports.
That's exactly how the functionality works in Amplify too. So when you're at
Right.
that level for the eventing, that's really cool. They're
Yeah.
doing those through AppSync. Yeah, AppSync.
Right. And so yeah, that's the benefit of everything you just mentioned and Supabase. Like they all take care of auth for you and the data layer.
Yeah.
And so because you know who that user is, we can do cool things in the data layer to know what that user should be able to see.
Awesome. Love this. So now is kind of the next phase of this that we'll get into. Basically, we want to start to like utilize what we have in Supabase now. So kind of think of this as an admin type of backend, if you will, like only logged in people, even though we're kind of allowing everyone. Typically, we'd have like an actual role base for admin. But what we want to do for this homepage now, instead of doing that index, I'm going to go ahead and put back this path. Restore that, pull out the index, see how bad this complains. Okay. So this page, and this is probably new for John, it sounds like. So definitely ask me questions. This is helping me learn as we go as well. So this is going to set up our Builder IO feature, I guess, of our page. So what we have here is in Builder IO. So if you haven't done this before, go out to Builder IO. You can go to Get Started, and you'll sign up, and you have an account, and then you create a space. And so for us, this is our new space that we created. I've created a home page here. I'm going to walk through that again, just so like everyone understands how this works. So I'm going to go ahead and archive this. If I can click the right button. Okay, so that homepage is gone. It should now, I believe there you go, 404. So poof, gone. If I now just create a new page and call this home, but we're going to leave just the slash because that's where we're at. I can actually pick any template out here that we want to and throw that in here. So I'm just going to pick, I don't know, what looks good, John?
I like the those animated purple people.
These people, love it.
Yeah, I like those. Very hip, very in.
I think that's from Undraw. So shout out to, what's her name? I can never remember her name. The Undraw person.
It's very cool.
So at this point, what we're actually doing now is previewing, and the only way you can really notice at this point is we have this home user sports animals. So we're sitting on localhost 3000 at this point. And if I do publish, like if I don't do publish, right, we're still getting a 404 and we won't get any page here. However, I can go into this draft view, and it throws all these fun, I don't know why this is happening, by the way.
I think I know why this happens, because I think we are currently trying, because I've now enabled RLS, I've broken your entire everything, I think.
This feels like it's a builder side of things, though, which is bizarre.
Maybe. But it might be because you're, that API key is a builder API key?
Yeah, and it should be expecting. I don't know why that's coming through. So ignore that for now. We'll get there. So at this point, you can actually publish this page, and then on this side, we should get our page.
Cool.
So within Builder, you're also seeing all these boxes kind of light up, right? So all of these are just different layers sitting inside of here. So if I want to make things great, boom, I removed it. And now our page will update. And this is just like whatever, WordPress, Webflow, you name it, visual editing, cool, right? So this is not the aha moment yet. Like we always call it the aha moment. What we want to look at in here, and I'll just blank this entire page out now. So we just start with this add block, and that's the only thing we have. And so John was telling me about kind of some of these auth components that we can get into. And I believe, let's see here. Are any of these the pre-canned ones in your examples? Probably not. So
are we building an auth page specifically, or should we just build pulling the data back out and displaying it in Builder?
So that's where I was originally heading. I don't know if we might have broke that with the RLS piece, but let's.
No, we'll just need to we'll need to nudge it slightly,
Okay.
but it'll work. It'll work.
So the cool part, let's talk about that a minute on the Next.js side. So I'll make this a little bigger. Hopefully we can kind of check this out for a minute. So let me go back into the path area here and talk through this just for a second. So on path, what we have here is our builder setup and our builder API key. So we have the API key being registered here. And basically what this is asking for, and actually this might be what's breaking it because I forgot I put that personalization stuff in already. What we're basically saying here is go into builder, and where the URL path matches / in our case, because there's nothing after it, go find that page and then provide that data back to us in this page parameter. So get static props is happening on the server. It fetches that page on the server, and then it provides that page data back to us. And that page data comes in as a what's the word I'm looking for? It is late, John. I'm telling you.
A parameter?
I guess parameter. Yeah, I'm thinking prop. There's the word I'm looking for. In React world. So that comes in as a prop. And basically we're saying, okay, if there isn't a page, go ahead and throw an error, which we saw, the 404. If this page data is coming through, go ahead and put that into this builder component. And then we have our full content page that it creates on the server. So you're actually creating static pages based on the JSON data that we're pulling from builder itself. So that's kind of the cool part, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Now, the next part of this is we can pass any type of state-based data as well. And I have a cool diagram. Maybe I'll share it after this, how this works. I'm going to actually bring up CodingCats really quick just to show everyone how we do this. So we actually moved everything over on CodingCat not that long ago. And I have the same kind of setup. It's a little probably different though. And the reason I'm looking for this is because we pass all kinds of data in, and I want to make sure I'm getting the right builder piece here. I believe it's this model data. Okay, yeah. So in here, the way that we can pass state is through this data prop. So anything we want as an object, we can pass into that prop from data that we're pulling. So at this
and then that appears in the Builder IO UI?
Yeah. So this
Cool.
is gonna break your brain a little bit,
Yeah.
or at least you might get it. It broke my brain.
It's already broken my what? It's already impressed my brain.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So I'm just gonna drop that data in so I remember what it is. But basically at this point, and this is the part I kind of need help with on your side, when we're doing our get static props, I actually want to call out to Supabase to be able to pull data. And this is where you're like, let's just stick to client side. So I don't know if you're ready for this or not.
No, I am ready for this. So
Okay.
the reason that I was um the reason that I thought it would take a little while to set up is that all of our data fetching currently is happening client side with Supabase, and because we're signing in client side and all of that stuff,
Mhm.
um, Supabase already knows all of that. Our client's set up correctly. When we go through to the server side, we need to explicitly tell the server who our user is. If we want to be selecting things on behalf of the user. But because this is just building a static page, this data is just like it doesn't matter who the user is that's signed in.
Exactly.
These pages are available to everyone, so they're not behind like an auth wall or anything like that. So in this case, we can use. You remember before when we were in Supabase and I was pointing out the anon
Yes,
public
yes,
key,
yes.
we
Yep.
can actually use the service role key in Supabase to create our client, um, which yeah, you might want to trash this instant or re-roll your keys after
Totally
we
fine.
finish the stream. But yes, this service role secret key will bypass RLS and basically just give access to everything. So if we go
Do
to your .env.local file, I'm guessing is where, yeah. And then if we create a Supabase service key, so we don't want the next underscore public in front of it, and this is because we don't ever want to expose this value to the client. So this should be treated like your API keys in most other services. Um,
cool.
the
And
anon
so
key can be exposed to the front end, but the service role key never should.
And just for those who haven't used Next.js before, when we, and this can be really confusing if you're just getting started with it. When we are calling get static props, this is happening server side, whether it's on, so there's get server props, I believe, and get
Get
static.
server side props, get static props, and get initial props. I think will run on the server as well as anything in your API folder. So any API route that you have in Next.js.
So all of those, even though we're in a React page essentially, and you see React down here client side, this stuff is actually happening on the server. Just clarification. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So how do we?
And it's also because we're using get static props to further confuse this. This isn't just happening when the user loads the page, but this is happening when the server is building the application. And so,
Or during ISR to even further
yeah,
confuse it.
yeah. True. So it is kind of happening when they refresh. But anyway,
Right.
let's just say let's not dive into that. This is happening when we first create the page, which means we don't even have a user at that point.
Yep.
Like maybe we don't even have users signed into our application. So it doesn't make sense for us to use the currently signed in user because they don't exist at build time. And so because this is like just happening on the server and is like a server function generating pages, that's the perfect use case for when we would use the service role key in Supabase and sidestep RLS. So it means that we need to create a new client though. We can't use the helper that you used in the front end, this one, because that's got that anon key baked into it. We could create a function where we could optionally pass it in, but yeah, let's just create it from
We
scratch in
do.
our.
We do.
Uh,
Do you just want to do this and do like a server one?
oh yeah, cool.
Cool. Is it
And yeah,
still
in that
client?
case, all we need to do is change the next underscore public Supabase anon key to just Supabase service key without the next public.
I'm gonna go copy this because I will mess this up, guaranteed. Oops. But I totally messed that up, didn't I grabbed the wrong copy. There. All right.
Cool. And maybe just to make it even more clear, let's make it rather than Supabase anon key, we'll call the variable Supabase service key.
Love it.
And then in the create client as well. Yep. Perfect.
Cool.
And now we want to pull in this Supabase server,
And
or
just
we want to.
just for clarification, John, there's not like a create server. It's always create client. It's just generic client.
Yeah. So it's a Supabase client, but whether we're using our anon key or our service role key determines what sort of access privileges we have when we actually make those requests to
Cool.
Supabase.
Awesome. So then we're going to import Supabase from server.
Yeah,
cool.
Worked it out. And then, and so now we can just do a regular call. So we can just say sports is equal to supabase.from. And then we want to select all of the columns. So select star. And actually, if you, that'll need, in quotes. And then did you want to copy across your other sorting logic?
Oh, yeah, I guess it doesn't really matter, but we can.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. We'll just actually steal this whole thing, right?
Yeah, that works.
Cool. So then we're going to await this, I would assume.
Yep, and then get rid of the dot then. And
yes.
And then sports, the variable sports becomes data in curly brackets. Yeah. Cool.
Can you do, I always forget, can you do like
yes.
sports?
Yeah. So you can call that sports. Yep. And now you'll have a variable called sports. And so maybe, let's just pass it through.
And we can pull it in down here where usually it's that.
And then I guess we want to pipe that straight through as our data.
Perfect. I think we're good. So let's see
if my magic mixes nicely with your magic and gives us like ultra magic.
Like ultra magic. I like it. Yeah, we're like
I was gonna say super magic, and then I realized,
we're building super magic, right?
I use the super adjective too much, like just prior to working at Supabase. I always have to catch myself out.
I always say perfect, like perfect for everything now. So same deal. We got it. The cool thing here now, we'll take a look at this. I just want for clarification on the client side, we had the RLS pieces where we're now like checking and blocking things. Do we have anything when we're using that server key? It's just wide open.
Yeah, so it completely bypasses RLS. So it's just exactly the same as if you hadn't enabled RLS for the.
So be careful, folks, is what we're saying. Like you can do anything with this table now.
Yeah, which is why we're only doing it on the server side, because otherwise we would be giving clients an access token that they could use to do anything to our database. And so we're only doing this in that controlled environment of the server.
Awesome. Okay, now I hope this works. It's been a minute since I actually played around with the builder side of this. There should be on this side now. Oh, what's happening? What did Alex mess up? I wonder if we're getting an error on the Supabase side of things.
500 internal error, Supabase client. Yeah, I thought this might be a problem. So because we are importing Supabase in this, I think it's still trying to run that code on the client side where actually, did you restart the dev server? Whenever we add a .env.local value, there we go. Let's see if that just magically works before I start explaining the thing that I was about to explain.
We keep getting that, which I still don't get, but we'll figure that out at some point. Okay, so I think, let me refresh the whole page just to make sure I'm not completely going crazy. So at this point, Builder actually has functionality built into it in this whole iframe craziness world that we're living in, where we're not only viewing our local components that are sitting within this whole Next.js side, but we did just send data up to it as a state object as well. And if we go over here, we should be able to see that state. So here is our sports array showing up on the builder side.
That is so cool.
So here's where we get a little crazier, right? So like if you as a developer say to your marketing team, I will pass you this API data do whatever you want with it. This is kind of the fun piece now. So I'll make this side a little bigger just so hopefully people can see it. This gets a little tricky because there's a window within a window and it wants to capture a plus key. So I got to figure out how to do this. I think if I go up here, yeah, I was going to say, I figured this out the other day. Okay.
And it's so cool that all of this is working through like localhost. Like,
Yeah.
it's very cool.
There's some security things that people occasionally bump into that we have to kind of work through, but it's all documented out there somewhere. So you should be able to find it. But also, just on that note, once you get this set up, like we could deploy this to Vercel right now, and it would work the same way. You could then give it to marketing and say, okay, still go do your stuff because they're good and they can preview on their own site.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, so now we're going to do something a little crazy wacky, and we'll see if this works. I'm going to drop in just what's called a box. And for folks, this is just like a div, basically. And it has some base kind of CSS properties built into it. And what I want to do on this is actually probably I'm going to just clear this whole thing for now. And I like leaving this layers open. So we're going to call this a grid. And on my CSS properties, I'm just going to do display grid and then do a probably grid template, not column, row, column. I always get this screwed up. So like 1FR, 1FR. We'll see what that does. Okay, and now I can add another new box inside of this grid. And if I just put text in it for this moment, just so you can see. So there's my text. If I were to duplicate this, I did do it the wrong way. I told you every time, John. It's grid template columns, not rows. Okay, there we go.
Nice.
So now we've got these 4 things, but ideally we don't want them to do that. What we want to do is actually create this dynamically. So I'm going to delete those back out. I'm going to look at this box and say, okay, let's go over to data and let's do a data binding to this. And we are going to do get, no. I'm doing this wrong. Hang on. Repeat. So repeat for each in these sports.
That is so cool.
So I'm repeating all of the sports as if they're like at these boxes.
Yeah.
Now what I can do with inside of those is say, okay, for this text right here, I'm going to bind from sports the text in here and sports item name. So now I've got all my names. Right? Did you
That's
just
amazing.
have the aha moment?
That is so cool.
You missed it. You weren't fully on screen. Hang on, let me make you bigger. So this is the crazy part. Like all of your server stuff's happening, you're passing state over, and then we get to manipulate state up in the builder side and do all this fun stuff with it, right?
Marketing's gonna go wild.
Exactly.
We're gonna have so many pages.
you'll never get bothered by marketing anymore.
Yeah.
Like we're good. You don't have to
amazing.
bother us. Thank you. We'll talk to you later. So this is cool because we're like pulling it through the API. But the other cool piece, and this is it, are you good on time? I know.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we could throw like images in here and everything else if we wanted to. So let's just show that real quick. So these also can be bind.
You're not currently sharing. If you think you're sharing.
Thank you. I always do that. So I threw some image boxes in there, and I am also going to get this from the image.
Oh, cool.
Now, because I just screwed that up, we might have to refresh once. Get image. I do not know why that's working. Not working. We're just going to pretend that worked. just to move on with the next thing. That's right. Magic, super magic is happening in Builder.
Yeah,
Okay,
that is so
so
cool.
the next cool piece. So we've done this kind of just with generic like div-based data on our API, which is fine. Like that's pretty cool. The next thing I want to do is take and register a React component that Supabase wrote and use it in my UI editor. So it'll show up over here under custom components.
Okay.
Are you ready for this one? This is where my head exploded when I first checked this out.
I'm ready.
Okay, I might have to refer to again my sites for notes because this part gets a little more complicated. I guarantee Steve or like someone else that does this day in day out could do this in a heartbeat. Alex is still new to this. Let's see. Facebook is the wrong thing. I gotta remember where I'm doing this at. So let me do register folder. There we go. All right, so on this one, what we can actually do is use Builder, and we don't even have to do the dynamic side to this. We can because it like makes it more performant. But I'm going to show you how to actually run this. So let's just grab one of these. I guess it's this whole thing. So I should be able to jump back. Sorry for jumping around different code bases, folks, but I am in our example code base. John's still there. Look at that. Your cursor just keeps popping up. Do you actually follow me around? Is that?
Yeah, I've clicked follow, so it'll just.
That is awesome. This is such a cool feature.
It is so cool because then I can just like occasionally jump in if there's something I need to change, and my cursor's already right there. It's very very well thought out.
I think we can even chat about it, like right here. Say, hey, John. Oh, I don't know. I don't.
Oh no,
like
yeah,
that.
no, it popped up. It's
Okay.
gone. I don't know.
Import builder from builder React, I believe. Okay. So you said, and I could be completely off on this, you have kind of some pre-canned components for Supabase. Is that right?
Yeah. So if you go to, it's called Supabase UI. Yeah, that one. And so this is a UI library that we actually use for building the Supabase dashboard. So it's a collection of components that are already styled for Supabase things.
Awesome.
So if you wanted to just grab like a button or something from here,
Sure. Let's start easy. Let's do button.
yeah.
So this is what it'll look like, this primary button. Okay. So let's drop that in here. So this is the use of it. All right, just double checking here. The button is kind of interesting a little bit because we're almost going to have to kind of wrap this because you're probably going to want like text that you provide into the button, right?
Sure.
So on this, let me jump back again. I have a couple of these where I think I call them like wrapped. For Next.js, I use like Next.js link to drag around. This right here. So we just provide that back. We'll just do we'll call it Supa button.
Yeah.
And then instead of href, we're actually just going to do text probably. Oh, and we're in JavaScript, so I can't have all my nice stuff. Oh, I can't have any of this. That's right. Okay, and now because of this button, how is button? Yeah, okay, all right. I'm like, what is happening? Okay, so if you're following along, folks, basically what I'm gonna do here is this is just, we call this a hierarchy component. I still suck at React. This is like,
this would be a higher order component because
okay,
it takes a. Oh no, it would just.
like a wrapper component. Let's just call it
Yeah.
that. I'm not good with all these React terms yet. So what we're gonna do, instead of using dynamic, we then have this whole code block right here. What this takes is just the component. So we're going to call this the Supa button. And then we have all this other stuff. So we'll call this the Supa button. And then we actually don't need anything
or
but
inputs.
so input is just going to be text. Actually, I don't know why that's long text. I'm not familiar with our long text. So just do that string default value. Just make that John.
Click the John button.
That's right. Okay. So theoretically now I've registered a component in our Next.js site, and it's exposing that component up to Builder. And go over here. Yes.
We probably need to install Supabase UI. Yeah, so you'll need to do an npm install. So this is a completely separate package from Supabase. This is just why am I blanking on the term? Design library.
Running into all these React issues. React 18's here, folks. What does that not like? Let me try restarting the server. I don't know what that's complaining about. Fingers crossed. Type here.
So close.
Why the heck does it care about type? Register component is not a function.
We didn't say .ts. What are you talking about?
Did you see a .ts somewhere?
No.
Shoot. Webpack import.
So it's saying that I think it might be the import of register. So the builder, I think, is not a default. Should that be in brackets? Oh no, that is the default. Export declare.
That's interesting, right? I could try it this way, but I don't think that's it. Oh, maybe I'm wrong. Okay. Let's see.
Question is, did it
Supa
work?
button.
We have a Supa button.
And actually, we can get even fancier if you have a Supa image, but we'll do that some other day. Yeah. So instead of these little brackets over here, you can have other stuff. So actually, on all of our different API people, we can now drop in a Supa button. There's our John button.
That themed. Now, what if we want to change that text though, Alex? How would you do that? I don't want all my buttons to just say John.
I love this. I love when John's just right there. Okay, so the other cool part, instead of this text being here, let's take and bind our button text instead. So we're going to grab that name from button text. Well, what?
Yes. Another head explosion. How many heads do I have left?
You are going to need ibuprofen. I don't know if they have that in Australia, but maybe like some kangaroo dust. I don't know what you guys think.
It's nighttime where you are, but it's only like midday here. But I think I'm just gonna need to go take a rest and just like close my eyes. This has been
just lie down, hang out for a while. So that's like the most probably basic example, but that's how you can register a component and actually tie out any inputs that you could in a normal React situation.
Yeah,
but this is all just so kind of mixing together.
I recommend anyone who is watching that wants to take this a little bit further, try doing that with the auth component, because I kind of, in the The fact that our time is getting a little bit short, just wanted to go with something simple like a button. But if you did use the auth component, which basically just gives you a whole form that talks to Supabase, and that takes in like the Supabase anon key and URL and all of that stuff, that would be a really good extension to try out.
Yeah, so like basically if you're building something like with Supabase UI or a Tailwind UI, or Tailwind's kind of interesting just because of the compiling piece to it, but I won't get there. If you're building things with a component library, so like a material UI or something like that, you can take and create and register all of these things and give them over to, again, your marketing team, your like dev team in this case, if you're creating tools like this, and you can go to town, just creating different pages. And the cool part is we just hooked up Supabase APIs to it, and we could actually expose everything out that Supabase has too, because it's just a React component at the end of the day.
Yeah, all that piping in between is just so cool. Yeah, it's not like it just takes over everything and you just use the UI for Builder.io. Like being able to tie into that Next.js app in the middle is just, yeah, very powerful.
Yeah, and a big part of the Builder.io story too is I've mainly stuck kind of with the page example, but we do have like sections. So like let's say you have an existing app and you only want to like do a sidebar or something like that, you can just drop it into that area and that's all you have to work on. Like you don't have to rewrite your whole app and switch CMSs. You can use 3 different CMSs if you're pulling data from other places. So it's all pretty cool.
That's so cool.
Is there anything else we missed? Oh, we did miss a big portion. I should back up, and we named this one personalization at the edge, and I knew like we might be a little tight on getting to that, but if John promises he might have time for a part 2, I will promise I have time.
All right. If you will promise, I will promise. If you will be there, I will be there. Because yeah, that would be very cool to see the personalization side of this and how. And you said personalization at the edge, which makes me think this is maybe happening at the CDN layer and very, very quick for your users.
So I will throw this link out there really quick so people have at least something to check out. So this is Steve, our CEO and co-founder, talking about this. I believe this video is from the Next.js conf. Awesome. And we kind of talk about when we're talking about the edge. So if I go all the way down here, when we start to pull, sorry, am I sharing?
You're not sharing.
Yeah, I knew it. I knew it. As soon as I started talking about it and saw myself, I was like, that's not right. Let's do this. So let me just go back up. This video right here is from Steve, our co-founder. As you go down here, we talk kind of through some different parts to it, but the cool part here on the middleware, we could do anything. So when a cookie comes in or something like that, we could actually grab that JWT token and say, hey, go grab some Supabase data and we'll send that down for like an ISR to Builder to personalize it. So let's say that person, like, you want sports teams, but you love basketball. And now all of a sudden we know that by a UTM parameter or something like that. Supabase could go grab all the data, pass it to Next.js. And then that same way we use that state, we can then show you a page just based on you for the personalization. And that's the edge piece that we're talking about.
Very cool.
That middleware.
Yeah, you've intrigued me enough to come back. I'll come back for that for sure.
I knew it would take like a little bit of pushing. So I was really happy we finally got there.
Yeah.
John, I really appreciate it. I always have a blast talking to you. I'm glad I made your head explode, and we'll do this next part again.
Yeah, it's been fun. Thanks, Alex.
Cool. Take care.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Throw a little outro up. It's in the wrong branding, but here we go.